Hello students, today we will read chapter number 3, the Vedic culture, part 2nd. Let's start. Both men and women wore upper and lower garments made of cotton and wool. A variety of ornaments were used by both men and women. Wheat and barley, milk and its products like curd and ghee, vegetables and fruits were the chief articles of food. The eating of cow's meat was prohibited since it was a scared animal. Chariot racing, horse racing, dissing, music, and dance were the favorite pastimes. The social divisions were not rigged during the Rig Vedic period, as it was in the later Vedic period. Economic conditions. The Rig Vedic Aryans were pastoral people, and their main occupation was cattle rearing. Their wealth was estimated in terms of their cattle. When they permanently settled in North India, they began to practice agriculture. With the knowledge and use of iron, they were able to clean forest and bring more lands under cultivation. Carpentry was another important profession, and the availability of wood from the forest clear made the professions prohibitable. Carpenters produced chariots and plugs. Workers in metal made a variety of articles with copper, bronze, and iron. Spinning was another important occupation, and cotton and woolen fabrics were made. Goldsmiths were active in making ornaments. The potters made various kinds of vessels for domestic use. Trade was another important economic activity, and river served as important means of transport. Trade was conducted on barter system. In the later times, gold coins called nishka were used as media of exchange in large transactions. Religion. The Rig Vedic Aryans worshipped the natural forces like earth, fire, wind, rain, and thunder. They personified these natural forces into many gods and worshipped them. The important Rig Vedic gods were Prithvi, Agni, Vayu, Varun, and Indra. Indra was the most popular among them during the early Vedic period. Next in importance to Indra was Agni, who was regarded as an intermediary between the gods and people. Varuna was supposed to be the upholder of the natural order. There were also female gods like Aditi and Ushas. There were no temples and no idol worship during the early Vedic period. Prayers were offered to the gods in the expectations of rewards. Ghee, milk, and grain were given as offerings. Elaborate rituals were followed during the worships. Later Vedic period. The Aryans further moved towards east in the later Vedic period. The Satapatha Brahman refers to the expansion of Aryans to the eastern Gangetic plains. Several tribal groups and kingdoms are mentioned in the later Vedic literature. One important development during this period is the growth of large kingdoms. Kuru and Panchala kingdoms flourished in the beginning. Parikshat and Janamejaya were the famous rulers of Kuru kingdom. Pravahana Javali was a popular king of the Panchalas. He was a patron of learning. After the fall of Kurus and Panchalas, other kingdoms like Koshala, Kashi, and Videha came into prominence. The famous ruler of Kashi was Ajatasattu. Janaka was the king of Videha with its capital at Mithila. His court was adorned by scholars Yajnavalkya. Magadha, Anga, and Vanga seem to be the easternmost tribal kingdoms. The later Vedic text also refer to three divisions of India: Aryavarta, Madhyadesha, and Dakshinapatha. Political organization. Larger kingdoms were formed during the later Vedic period. Many jana or tribes were amalgamated to form janpads or rashtra in the later Vedic period. Hence, the royal power and increased along with the increase in the size of kingdom. The king performed various rituals and sacrifices to strengthen his position. They include Rajaswa, Asvamedha, and Vajpayee. The kings also assumed titles like Raja Vishwajanan, Abhilabhu Vanapati, Ekrat, and Samrat. In the later Vedic period, a large number of new officials were involved in the administration in addition to the existing Purohit, Senani, and Gramin. They include the treasury officers, tax collector, or royal messenger. At the lower levels, the administration was carried on by the village assemblies. The importance of the Samiti and the Sabha had diminished during the later Vedic period. Economic conditions. Iron was used extensively in the period, and this enabled the people to clear forest and to bring more land under cultivation. Agriculture became the chief occupation. Improved types of implements were used for cultivation. Besides, barley, rice, and wheat were grown. Knowledge of manure was another important industrial activity became more varied and there was greater specialization. Metalwork, leatherwork, carpentry, and pottery made great progress. In addition to internal trade, foreign trade became extensive. The later Vedic people were familiar with the sea and they traded with countries like Babylon. A class of hereditary merchants came into existence. Vaishyas also carried on trade and commerce. They organized themselves into guilds known as Ganas. Besides, Nishka of the Rig Vedic period, gold and silver coins like Satamana and Krishnala were used as media of exchange. Social life. The four divisions of society Brahmans, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, or the Varna system, was thoroughly established during the later Vedic period. The two higher classes Brahmana and Kshatriya enjoyed privileges that were denied to the Vaishyas and Sudras. A Brahman occupied a higher position than a Kshatriya, but sometimes Kshatriyas claimed a higher status over the Brahmans. Many subcastes on the basis of their occupations appeared in this period. In the family, the power of the father increased during the later Vedic period. There was no improvement in the status of women. They were still considered inferior and subordinate to men. Women also lost their political rights to attending assemblies. Child marriage had become common. According to Aitreya Brahmana, a daughter has been described as a source of misery. However, the woman in the royal household enjoyed certain privileges. Religions. Gods of the early Vedic period, like Indra and Agni, lost their importance. Prajapati, Vishnu, and Rudra became prominent during the later Vedic period. Sacrifices were still important, and the rituals connected with them became more elaborate. The importance of prayers declined, and that of sacrifices increased. Priesthood became a profession and a hereditary one. The formulae of sacrifices were invented and elaborated by the priestly class. Therefore, towards the end of this period, there was a strong reaction against priestly domination and against sacrifices and rituals. The rise of Buddhism and Jainism was the direct result of the elaborate sacrifices. Also, the authors of the Upanishads, which is the essence of Hindu philosophy, turned away from the useless rituals and insisted on true knowledge for peace and salvation. Thank you.